trapped a bunch of aging role-playing gamers in their homes, forcing them to crawl out of their pen and paper comfort zone and into the online world of virtual tabletops and video calls. So join them as they raise the curtain to share their stories, insights, and love of all things geek. So grab your longsword and your +1 bottle of Viagra and get ready for another episode of Advanced Age Role-Playing Gamers Podcast. That's a lot of syllables for one sentence.
All right, welcome to AARPG's first Meet the Cast. Chance for you to meet the different players and hosts on the AARPG podcast channel. Today, taking the first shot at it is Sean. All right, would you introduce yourself?
First, I'd like to say how honored and privileged I am to have this opening first time, recognizing that you recognize I am the most important member of this cast, that I am wise and of all things gaming. And before you mute me, I should probably get into the reality. So my name's Sean, last name Mahoney. I'm son of Tom, grandson of Patrick, the great immigrator who came across the shores from Ireland around the turn of the century. I'm in my 50s. I'm a Marine, former Marine, and I have a law enforcement background, but I have a college degree. I like reading. I'm married. I have a child. That's pretty much the short of it. There's nothing too exciting there. My hobbies are camping. I used to exercise a lot. I had to cut that down because of COVID and raising my kid. So that's pretty much the short of it.
Cool. Long walks on the beach.
No.
That's right.
Excuse me. Yeah, the beach is fine, actually, yes.
Midget porn.
No, that's you're confusing me with Chris. Chris likes midget porn. Tyr, my good friend Tyr, I don't want to even get into what he has. He has the whole Japanese Hanish porn thing. Tony Kupo, just say Pixie. Anyway, go ahead.
Anyway, yeah. So when did you start playing? When did you start playing?
So one on my birthday, I want to say I was around 7. Could have been 6. My parents got me the old D&D, not the original, but the second, the original one was like a black and white box.
Right.
And shortly after they came out with the original, I came out with the D&D box set, the basic set, the blue box.
The blue box, okay.
There was a blue, then there was a red box. I got that later. So I got the blue box, and I was like, what the hell is this? Yeah, I'm a little kid. I didn't say hell. I didn't start counting 7. But I get this thing, and I liked fantasy and all that sword and sorcery stuff and sci-fi. I like watching Star Trek. So my parents got it. And my parents, the D&D scare, they didn't care about that crap. My mother was very practical. My dad just didn't care. So I got it. I sacrificed a lamb. And then I anointed my friends, and we played a D&D game. And I actually was the DM. And I basically did the rules. I did the best you can for a child. I did it a few times. I got the advanced set later. But really, it sort of fell off until I got into high school. And then there was a D&D club, and I remember, God, I really like this. So I bought my basic set, my blue dice. Then the advanced set had yellow dice, I think. And I played, and we just played D&D. We played some spy games, some other. I don't even remember. There was like a spy game you could play.
Was it Top Secret?
Yeah, Top Secret had
Top Secret.
Yeah.
And we played that. We played some stuff. Then I went to end up at PG, and we joined a games club, and I think I was there before all of you guys. But, that's where I met you, all you. But I was there for a year, and I went to Marines and came back, and you guys were there. I was like, wow, look at this. But I played D&D there basically. I played D&D, and it was great to get back into it. And it was still the first edition at that point. There was no second edition. Still plodding through first edition, and then we played. I think Palladium came when I came back. Palladium had come up because Nathan, I think you like Palladium.
Yeah, I really like Palladium.
But Malcolm had this Robotech. I'm like, what the hell is Robotech? I said, and then I realized it's basically gay Japanese robot porn. Just kidding, it's not. But that's what Malcolm called it. And Malcolm is gay, so I took him at his word, and then he lied to me basically, and I realized it was this really sci-fi fantasy anime. I never heard of that before, based on that. And it was cool. It was cool. I didn't understand the playing system too much, but I had fun playing it. And we played other games. I played like Twilight 2000 at one point down when I was there, and the original version of it. And I played, what else did we play? GURPS. Champions. God, Champions.
Champions, yeah.
Champions was awesome. And we played GURPS, and we sort of hovered around those games until.
Did you ever do any Vampire? Were you ever?
Vampire. We played Vampire the Masquerade. As a matter of fact, I got a great memory of that, Nathan. You being a DM you are, I was playing what the hell was it? I was playing a small vampire. I purposely made him like 5'4", and he was this sort of I forgot what he was.
So Gangrel?
Yes, he could make claws and stuff.
Yeah.
So I had to feed one night, and I said, my whole thing for my character was like he would go after bad people if he had to feed. Yeah. And some guys who tried to rob me, and I jumped them, and they're like, "Who are you, man?" I said, "I'm Batman," because I'm a vampire. And everybody laughed. You had too much fun losing man, and I'm like, this game sucks. Every time you're so cool, you lose your man. He goes, "It's vampire." I said, "This is like a totally goth game," and it was a goth game.
Yeah.
So I sort of was like, I remember being so pissed, like, God damn it, how I should have played like I should have played one of them other races where you're like, whatever. But
Tremere.
Yeah, Dan had a good character concept. His was, as I recall, he played a character who believed sucking on pure people would make him human.
Yeah,
he had a great concept, and Nathan gave into it. So he had ghoulified some nuns, and he would go feed on them. And I'm like, how can you allow this, Nathan? He goes, it's a great idea, and I don't really have time to take it in a bad direction. I said, that's fair. I kept waiting for like a priest to come up, like out of the old Dracula movies, and rake him in the heart, like with pure faith, and turn to ash.
I think I had like a holy hunter character adversary in the later game that kind of went after him, so he got his. And I apologize that like any game you're in with me that I run, I like consequences. I think consequences are fun.
I don't mind consequences. It's just I didn't understand the mechanics of the game, and I didn't realize how goth it was until you said that. Yeah. And I was like, man, this is a goth game, and I really did like. I was really truly at that time in my life not a goth guy. Obviously, no. I appreciated the lifestyle, but I was more of a metal dude, obviously. So I was like, what's all this this joy and pain and all this and being this and that? And it's vampire, it's a master. But I had a lot of guy friends outside our group that into it, man. They live role played it at cons, and I was like, what the hell is this going on here? And I figured it out.
Yeah, LARPers are a different breed. But,
They are, man. They are. But they're fun. Good for them.
So I'm going to jump number 2 because I'm pretty sure that was Dungeons & Dragons is the first system you played.
Dungeons & Dragons was the first system I played.
Yep. So I'm just going to go into number 3 and not the game, it's number 4. And so do you remember your first character, or what's the oldest character you can remember?
The first character I remember was a D&D character. First year was a guy named Cronin the Barbarian. It's one that Greg killed that I lost.
Sounds familiar.
Because I was having a really bad week. And but he was a douche. I mean, he really was. He was a douche. I particularly made him a bit of a douche, and and he got killed like a douche. But it was my first character, and I really got into and did the whole backstory on, and really got into. And that's the first time I learned you can't get too attached to your characters, because I had a bad week. Like I had this girl I broke up with, and there was all this bad stuff going on, and I had some stuff going on at home, and so I came and met the game that night. And we went from playing, we had this new DM that we split the group. The group got too big. And the guy was one of these killer DMs that you heard about back in the day. He just liked killing people. And that's what he did. He killed characters off just at a whim. He was a bit of a douchebag. But that's, that's what happened. And that was fine. And then I moved on to my next character on, D&D character. But he was the first one I really remember that I have at least D&D wise, I remember. The ones following that were sort of just, me screwing around, and I think we got away from D&D for a while after that. Or at least I went away. Then in the Marines, and I came back.
Yeah,
we were doing different things. We weren't playing D&D when I came back. It was GURPS and Palladium. So I didn't play D&D again for a while. And those characters really, I don't know, they weren't fine. I mean, I played Marvel. I did enjoy Marvel a little bit, but I had how I found I didn't really feel I was it's so lazy. I just didn't feel like I had time to learn the characters because we kept jumping games because I was studying and I was working and then I was partying so much. Yeah. And it was this hierarchy of like, dude, if I take time to read these books, I'm not going to fucking have time to go out and fucking hang out and drink or go to the strip joints, which is one of the big hobby of mine at the time. So I would take a character pre-made and say, let me play this. And I would. And then I want to do stuff to that character. And I go, you can't. It's the original character. I'm like, no, really, I could do this to the character. Right? And I get in these arguments with, like, James was the fucking worst. You want to take the character and you just want to change the concept because this is how I learn, man. I don't sit there and read the book like for frickin', and read every minute detail. So then I started hanging out with Roy, as you guys remember. He played Champions. And Roy was like James, but he was more fun at it. He would read the rules, and he was really irritating to Dan. I remember he would pull stuff out, and Dan would get so mad when he ran a game because he was right. And he would find some rules, and he would make this character. Roy could twist. Was the first person. He was the best at it first. He could take a bunch of rules. He could hold them up like in a dimension, like some sort of 3D in his mind to expand it. Go, if I connect these dots, I can have a guy that can punch some guy and his head will explode. Literally. And he would do it, and he would start laughing, but he wouldn't pull that out until the big fight. And he would hide it in plain sight. He'd write all these notes down, and he'd look at his character, and then he'd go, well, what you didn't see is this right here, and I wrote here. And you already approved it. You got to let me do it now. And they would have to, of course, you'd let him do it because you did, as a game master and approved the character, you had to eat it. Mm-hmm. So that was always fun. But yeah. So then after that, the characters I had, I enjoyed. I'm sorry, we were answering. That's my first character. Go ahead.
Well, I guess if you have
if you got some other favorites.
Well,
who's your favorite?
Well, we can go to the next one. The favorite game system. Because the way the questions are laid out, then we go to the favorite character. So the favorite game system I played recently, I did enjoy Marvel to some extent. I hated the karma rules. I love Champions. I thought Champions you could do so much with. There's so much you could do with the point system there. The problem is you got to really regulate it because, man, if you get really good at it, like we got so good at it, you could take a character and make him so ridiculously powerful as a game master. It's so much. It's like Dragon Ball. You're destroying the world every time you play because you're so powerful.
Yeah, I'd like to play Champions again sometime.
Yeah. The other thing is, I think the best system I enjoyed playing is D&D 5e because they've just done so much with it, and there's so many directions you can take the characters. I think you got way many options. Starfinder is very limited because it's a newer system. I don't hate Starfire. I know we play a game right now with Starfire. I enjoy it. I've adjusted to it. I think it has its limitations, but I think it's okay. Right now, it would be Champions. That's the characters. The game set. I'm not Champions. It would be 5e because I haven't played Champions. I know there's different rules out for it now.
Yeah.
So that's the just game system I think I would go with.
Okay. But D&D's 5th editions, I gotta just say, it's pretty forgiving. Yes. It's a fun cinematic system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, they've expanded on it. They have all these books, and they did this D&D Beyond. That's it. That's what makes it really a killer. So the thing with D&D Beyond is we can all share our resources, basically. Mm-hmm. And there's so much in the resources. You have spaceships. You could have guns now. You could play all sorts of cool monks. The characters in the original game you could never play, you can create now. There's so many variations just on a ranger or a fighter or a cleric. Mm-hmm. I mean, my character, the current character of the balance, he's the Omega. Yeah. He's a cleric, but he's a cleric that he's more like a death knight because he goes around and he freaking can suck the life out of people.
Yeah, he's a badass.
He's a badass, and he has some good hit points, and he has a good armor. And I'm like, he's all right. He doesn't have the number of attacks, but he can stand there and take a beating, and he can heal, which is weird. He's like, I drained the soul. I restored the balance by draining this person's soul. Now I will give you life to manage the balance. And it's like people are like, what? What the hell is this guy talking? What's this robot talking about? You can do stuff like that in 5e. You can take a curveball and go in a different direction. And I think we've expanded the alignments where, if you explain the character concept with the alignment correctly enough, it'll work. Where in the old days, like you could be a paladin now that's lawful neutral, like they right?
Yeah, they're definitely less restrictive on alignments, and it's definitely more fluid. And that's it's there's something to be said about having strict alignments as part of a game mechanic. But you found as your GM, you kind of found yourself either like being too heavy-handed with like trying to correct people, or you just kind of hand waved it and said, okay, I'm just going to ignore the fact that you're torturing somebody. So,
well, yeah, and as a GM, you guys are GMs more than I am. Ultimately, at the end of the day, it gives you leeway to do what you need to do, which you can always do, but it gives, I think, a character more. If I'm developing a character, I have a concept. Like when I started the Omega, he's an interesting guy, and he's a war, to explain to the crew who's watching, he's what's called a Warforged, and he's a living robot who became a cleric, and he believes in the balance, which is there must be a balance. There cannot be too much good or evil in the world. That's the basic concept of his religion. Because too much of one ends up going the other way. So if there's too much evil in the world suffers, and good rises up. Of course, to distort that, but that causes pain to everybody. But if there's too much good itself can be oppressive and cause harm to people. Because what is good? If I think I'm good, and we all believe the same thing, but you believe differently, I'm going to crush your belief, even though if it's not harmful. So that's along the lines. That's sort of the lines I was taking him. I hadn't fleshed it out yet because it's sort of tricky. But Nathan was letting me go with it, and it was cool to play. He was lawful neutral, and he had a code, and he was trying to stick to his code. But it was interesting, and you can do that now in D&D. You can do that in a lot of games. Before, we were real. If you think about it, we go back 20 years or so, at least in the last 10 years, I think. There's been so much leeway in some games in the older systems. Palladium. When we first played Palladium, the Palladium system, you had the basic Palladium. You had a heroes book, which was okay. You took the MDC and SDC out. There was a lot of variations. And they had the Supernatural. I love the Supernatural game Palladium, by the way. Fun. I love my character. That was one of my favorite characters.
Matt ran that.
Yeah, Matt ran that. And I love my character, the Nega Psychic.
Who was? Oh, you were the Nega Psychic.
I was the one. Yeah. I saw it. I said, that's my guy. Why? I said, because I'm the one that doesn't believe in any of this hippie bullshit. So I will fuck it at the time. I said, I will be him. I will disbelief my way into that. And I always played that in a Rifts game you started. But we went the other direction I went in because I figured I didn't want to rehash the same character, basically. I think that we could roll into the next question, actually, because we're getting into characters. 6.
Yeah.
So 6.
Yeah, so do you have a favorite character? Well, do we kind of talk about that? No,
sort of, not really.
Who's your favorite? Well,
my first favorite character would be sort of you're always your first because that's the one that pops your cherry when you get into it. But he wasn't my most creative, but he was my first. My first real character I really put a lot of thought into, a lot of like developmental thought, I would say was with Malcolm when we played GURPS, when we played with Sparrowhawk. I think it was Sparrowhawk. He had the world. I had Patrick. He had it, the Duke of the South. He became the Duke of the South, but he was this. I told Malcolm the concept, and I had a rifle. I had a black powder rifle. I was with this advanced race of goblins. I was a journeyman. He had a whole backstory about he was an estranged son of a lord and Valguinian who set out on his own to find his own kingdom. And he was sort of very efficient, not necessarily evil, but he would, if he had to kill a bunch of people to get the job done and who were evil in the way, he would no quarter. He would give it. There was sort of a hardness. I made a hardness to the character, and I'll give you an example. We killed a whole tribe of orcs. We had to clear this land, and from this guy whose character was going to be the king, and I said, he goes, everything in the South is yours. So I was going to be the Duke of the South. I was going to have my own little kingdom, and I had plans. So I said, okay, we had a tribe of orcs that were terrorizing people. I said, so we went down and we sealed them and killed all of them, men, women, and children. I said, we have to kill them all because they always come back to haunt. So the character killed them. And it took a very brutal rule, but we talked about it. I said, well, let's get real. It's the medieval ages. This isn't modern era. This is like, these guys will come back and kill everybody. They eat humans, right? I mean, these are bastards, right? They terrorize the rest of the people, right? So we have to kill them. It's not like we have the resources to hold them or train them. There's like 30. There's 10 of us. Even with the NPCs. So we kill them. And I said, kill them. And Malcolm let me go in that direction, it's sort of a dark direction. Not, but it was what needed to be done. And that was coming back to haunt the character later because somebody tried to blow him up. There's this whole backstory. There's consequences. Second, Emerald Fury. Now, Emerald Fury was a amazing character. He was a Goof Supers character. He was an Irishman, and he was a spokesperson for Guinness. He was sort of based on remember it was just around the same time we played that movie came out with the Ben Stiller, the superhero movie.
Oh yeah.
And the main hero was sponsored. So I said,
right.
So I said, Malcolm's going, yeah, you got to develop a character. I said, Malcolm, I got it. And he goes, what is it? He goes, this is the character. You're going to love it. He goes, Irishman, Emerald Fury, sponsored by Guinness and Bushmills. He has a freaking, what is it? The hero has their buddy that goes with them. His name's Stout. Emerald Fury, and I'm Irish, and I'm powered by whiskey and Guinness. And what he was like a Green Lantern pair. He had a power pool, and he would get interviewed, and he would say stuff like, I'm going to say things like people in Ireland would say. People, all the characters from America, well, we were captured, we need justice, and we're not trying to kill anybody. Obviously, we're trying to do good, and this and that. Emerald Fury, how do you think? Oh, that's great. I mean, I really appreciate it. But if somebody's going to do something, and if I think they get away and they can hurt somebody, I'm just going to kill them. And he goes, what? You're going to do? Oh, yeah, why not? I mean, they're trying to kill people, for God's sake. I mean, the cops can't hold them. Why are we going to come back and get out? I'm just going to kill them. Matter of fact, I want to say right now on the news, if you're a villain and I catch you and you're killing people, I'm just going to kill you. So quit now. Now we're going to go have a drink. And and I had a much more thick accent. I practiced it. But he was fun. Then there was the other character, Matt, was in your game, was Captain Locke, Mr. Warlock.
Oh, yeah.
Which you dragged on this journey. That's a memorable character. And currently, I got to say, the one I'm enjoying a lot is another one. It's Zed, which is based on Zardos from Zed, from Sean Connery, who literally looks just like him and wears a thong. And who's basically a murderer who is on this journey. He's, his alignment, the best described is like lawful neutral. And he does have a code. He doesn't just, even though he says he murders people, I don't think he's actually ever just murdered anybody. Since we started playing, just killed anybody. They really had to do something violent or do something where he had to take action to kill him.
No, we leave that to Nathan's character.
Nathan's character in that game, I just want to say, Nathan's character talked to Zed about shoving people in this weapon and using him as a soul burner to power a gun.
We need batteries.
Zed almost went with it. He almost went with it, but then he realized that, the people he was going to use were just a bunch of religious people, and he just something inside him just kept him from doing it. But now, if we had a bunch of villains, real true villains, he'd shove them in there. Though he would just shove them in there. If we had a bunch of people invade the base, we had and they did horrible things. He'd be like, "Okay, everybody, get in this tube right here. We're gonna okay, try it. Hit the button, just to try it out, just burn them." So there's right now.
So I just have to convince you that they're villains, but so
no, they have to be. It's not hard. Zed's villain count is low. It's true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah, you went to that village and you took all the money from the people. Yeah. Well, I'm going to kill you now. That's all it takes. That actually sounds like Emerald Fury. That's completely wrong. That's not how he talks.
So Sean, I got to say, we got a little connection here. Is I'd say one of my favorite characters of all time is the character of Locke, right? Your character because I think it's one of the favorites for me is because as a GM, it's really the only game I've ever been able to run from beginning to end. And so, and although there were a lot of memorable characters in that game, the story was woven around your fate, right? Of going from that, right? And so, right. So it is, that's one of my most memorable characters too, just because as a GM, it's hard sometimes to run a full campaign, a full story. So
it was cool. I enjoyed that. And it was good. And even my shade, the one that was the fastest man alive, he was interesting. I knew I was going to go away from him, so I didn't get into him. I think if I played him more, I would have developed him more. Though he had a decent end, I think, in how you closed his loop. In
the news story?
Yeah, you closed his loop like in Looper. So there we go. So those are my characters I like. So
we could probably move on to the next question.
Yeah, number 7. All right, so why do you play role-playing games?
Well, why do I do it? I don't get paid to do it. It takes time out of my life. Well, thankfully I'm married now, so I mean, you could never tell people that when you're younger it wasn't cool. But it was, wouldn't get you chicks to tell people that you had a fucking 10th level paladin,
No?
fighting in Dartmoor. No, I liked it because it was fun to hang. I mean, when I went to the math, I sort of was in high school. I was a kid in a school and I didn't know anybody. And it was tough. It's tough when you go into high school, a boys' high school, and really, I should have probably in the modern day, I would have probably been pulled into. I was actually pretty smart, but I was so bored. I just had struggled because they just they didn't want to do anything with me. Because I lost. Well, they didn't nobody brought you in and talked to you, and they never did tests to figure out what was going on. Like now, if I was struggling, they'd take a test and they'd figure out that he's bored. We need to challenge him. But that I just sort of didn't have anything to do. I couldn't play sports because my grades initially weren't good. But then when my grades got better, I just didn't want to do it because at that point I was a sophomore and I didn't feel like doing it. I wanted to actually get to work. I was looking for jobs to make money. But I started playing D&D, and we played D&D again. And I liked it because it was a getaway from reality. You're a kid looking to do stuff. I was reading fantasy books like Lord Fowlsbane, Stephen Donaldson books, and Pierce Anthony books. His books were out. Some other books, fantasy novels I was going through, and that was my thing, man. So that's what I got into in high school, and that's why I got into it. It was fun. It was good to hang out and just make believe in the world. That's why I play. I mean, where else can you we got VR now, right? And we got all this media and movies you can watch. We didn't have that then, guys. And if some kid sees this interview, he's 20s, you can immerse yourself in all sorts of stuff. You can put a haptic suit on. Put a VR set on and play an hour at one of these VR studios killing zombies. We didn't have that. So now it's it's a mind thing. You can get in, you see something movie, some fantasy world you want to see. Pick some movie franchise. Terminator. You were in robots. It's an apocalypse setting. You could take one of these game systems and you could be in that game. Because that's what we did. We created worlds. We created a vampire world. We created a fantasy realm. I mean, Dan had a whole world, though he was a bit of a brutal sometimes about it. He had some sort of absolute rules about how he ran his world. He had a big fantasy world he built, and you could do that, and there's a structure to it. Like Malcolm was great at creating a world. Amazing. You should write it. I don't know why he does it. Matt, you want to do basically a sci-fi trilogy or an operetta, whatever you want to call it, and you can be part of that. And that's sort of fun because Babylon 5 was awesome. Who doesn't want to be in a story like that and play a character? Who doesn't want to play a character like Lord of the Rings where you can create a character like that and somebody makes a big baddie? And you guys get around doing it. And, of course, you're drinking, you're joking around. It's not just the gaming. What else do we talk about? I mean, we're old men, so not old. We're older men, so we talk about politics. We talk about this guy and that guy and all this happy bullshit because it is all bullshit. Politics is bullshit. And most people are full of, I'll get into that later. That's in another question. But basically, it's like we can talk about it and we can sound because we all don't see eye to eye on everything. But we've known each other long enough where we can talk, and that's part of this concept is having fun, getting together, and doing things. We don't go to titty joints anymore. We play games where we go to titty joints and throw monies at people.
That we know of,
and they might have 4 titties, but it's okay. I'm just kidding. Or am I?
Or am I?
So I guess the next question is, why do you think role-playing games are so popular today?
Well, one, it's taken off. Let's get real. It was just D&D for a while. Then, like the late '80s, other groups started going. In the '90s, you start seeing other games, and I think it's just something that keeps growing. One is internet. I think internet, like I said, I'll go back to D&D Beyond. Roll20, using that system. It's easier for people to game. It's just easier. There's so many resources. There's so many games. And I think it's more accepted. And I think there was a time remember the D&D scare and people I mean, and there were some people, some religious groups, and I'm not bashing religious groups, don't get me wrong, but religious groups had problem with rock and roll, and they had problem with rap, and they've had problem with this everything. Some groups, they
fun.
Yeah, they just think, and I understand they're worried about the moral souls of everybody, but some groups had problems with video games, and none of those have ever proven to be any problem to anybody growing up. And I think parents, people in general, see a value of. It makes you playing a game where you're playing a fantasy, you're playing unusual things, sort of broadens your mental horizon. It makes you think about things that are different because you can look at it that way because you do stuff. And if you have somebody that's really creative as a game master, they can put you in situations you will never be in life, and you give to figure it out. Things that are you can literally have a situation like if you're really good. I just listened to, I'm going to give a pre-cut podcast that was called Dark Dice, where every decision was bad. Every decision was tough. Every decision you had to, they were faced with these really they're basically trying to keep a closed away God from coming, and it was very hard. It was like Cthulhu-esque type of mentality where everything is hard and can drive you crazy. You're making decisions based on the result of people's deaths. And it puts you in a position how you're going to react to that. And how you think you would react, so not to make it too seriously, it's still a game, don't get me wrong. And when you do it, you're like, wow, it makes you think a little deeper. And I think there's something to that because I do believe people are bored. I do sometimes, I think, because we have it really good here in America. And anybody who's been overseas, I know Matt has been, he's done some things. Tier has worked, I, of course, have where I work, and I've seen some very poor, destitute people. And I've been in areas where people are poor and destitute, and the type of living they do would shock us here. And I think we have it good, so people get to experience a little bit of that in some sense. They get depending on how the game, they get totally unusual circumstances, and it challenges you, and it's sort of fun to be challenged. So
yeah,
if that makes sense.
I know that's true.
Next.
Yeah. So.
We're on 9.
Yeah. So real world experiences, have they really changed how you play?
Oh yeah, I think anybody. I mean, just growing older changes your because when you're in your 20s, you don't know how to be a parent. You don't know how. So I'll give you an example. You're in D&D and you're in the village and you're in college. Your character's listening. Oh, brave knight and warrior. Our families and children are here, and blah, blah, blah. And you're like, in your 20s, like, fear not, we will go out into the woods, but we need protection. We're worried about this. Us in our 20s would leave the village, go out and try and find the guys. And, oh my God, they came in. It's horrible. They killed the village. These bastards. Now we would think, yeah, that would be a bad idea. We really probably should leave somebody. It wouldn't be right to leave these children alone because we understand the value of children, because we have children. We understand that. We're not just so carefree. You grow older, you think about things. If you're running a good system, you think about the reality. Would I really just do that? If I'm really a good person, I'm not going to leave mama or 5 kids and all the women and children hiding alone. Just hide in this building. Don't worry. The demon orcs won't get you and pillage and rape you and take your souls. It'll be fine. We'll be out in the woods chasing them. They're not going to come in and get you, and you're defenseless. But it is that, and I think. That things like that, your perceptions, what you go through, good and bad, changes your perceptions of how you game. It brings something good to it. It brings expertise, like being my background is in the military. Like we were playing the Alien game, And it said, okay, you're playing a gunny, and I just stepped right into it, man.
Yeah, you did.
Now, I cannot do a woman's voice for the life of me, so I don't even try. But what's your problem, Green Bee? What is your major malfunction? I'm going to put my foot, the whole nine. And everybody's like, Matt, God, you just stepped right in. I said, yeah, I did. You just never leave.
Just turned it on.
I was thinking that first night, there was not even a hiccup. It was just like someone like flipped the switch and suddenly it was, Gunny Mahoney, right? It's like,
yeah, I never was, but I lived that, so I got it.
Right.
It's like Green Bean. Who the hell is Green Bean? I was like, what is he talking about?
I came up with it. And I had names. I was going to come up with names for everybody eventually.
Yeah, that's great.
But then, what's his name? My background having law enforcement for over the years is so you can see people at their best and worst. So you could understand if let's say I was going to do something, I was going to make something. If I was a games master, somebody asked me how it's depraved or something and I've had people ask me in gaming like about police. We have had comments on how people act and how the court systems work, and is it possible for this to happen? And I tell them, yeah, definitely. You see describing, just certain situations in gaming, like how a crowd will react if such and such happened. And we're like, oh, they would totally do this. Obviously, you're absolutely right. It's, being anything, good and bad. Like, it's like, you see people at their best, you just know. I think, that's, how medics work. Just dumb little game mechanics. I know, because in games we play, there's always like, if there's some detective game, you're going to have cops and this and that or something. You're going to go, well, how would a detective do? Well, they would do this, this, and this. And they would question. So there's no phone books. There's no this. There's no that. But they'll look for video. And what? Yeah, they'll look for video. And there's always somebody with a cell phone film. Oh, really? Yeah. You can do little things that, as a game master, you can use, right? And I can tell you that anything you see on CSI is bullshit. So there's no, unless we're in some sci-fi game where there's that stuff, like we're near 3035 and they pull a little wand out and they do that stuff doesn't exist, right? And and there's no beating anybody in the thing. There's no planting of evidence. There's none of that goes on.
Wow.
Now it depends on the game you're playing. If you're playing certain jurisdictions in certain eras, certain times, certain dates and times. If you're playing, the South in the mid 30s and 40s era, Jim, I'll give you some sort of anecdotal stories I've done in case studies about shit that went on, but that was horrific. I could tell you about. So what type of, like, let's say we're how police deal with vice stings and everything, but I can also tell you about. The military, I can also tell you about from my wife in education, raising a kid, or just some of the things like what it's like to do CPR on somebody, things like that. Just like, okay, you're doing first aid. So what happens when you do first aid? I can say, well, when you first do your first chest compression, somebody's ribs crack. And if you've never done it before, the first time you do it, it fucking just sends a shiver down your spine. Yeah. It's like, what did I just do? And then you realize because your training kicks in, it's like you're saving their life, or you're trying to. You keep going, because that's just what happens. The ribs separate; they crack and they separate because you're and you got to remember, sometimes you do a little harm to do good. So when you're trying to save something, it's like putting a tourniquet on. It hurts like fucking hell, but it'll keep you alive.
Yeah.
So, all right, and that's a dark way of looking at it. But I've had dark stuff going on. I've had a lot of good things going on, but there's a lot of good things, like But anyway, go ahead. Next question.
I guess
I think it's the last one.
Is there anything else, right? Anything else you want the listeners to know about you?
Yes, I do. I am the greatest gamer. I am the best. And others will get on and say they're good, but I am the best. Truly, I am wonderful. I am the great and powerful Oz.
What's your gamer tag? You got a tag, don't you?
No,
not just Sean.
No, I'm Lord. Oh, yes. So I am Lord Ireland. So I am not the Lord of all. Let me put this disclaimer out. So when I was many years ago, and I got this from going to SCA events, which is Society's Creative Acronyms. I was nicknamed as Sean the Irish Bastard, and I got it from Blackadder. I needed an SCA name, and that's a name. I wasn't going to use. I'm not making up a name for myself. I thought it was and I get it now, but at times like bullshit. My parents gave me my name. I'm using it, and stubborn me. I didn't come like an Ajax the Unholy or anything nuts. People make crazy, really good personas, by the way, in the SCA. So I was Sean the Irish Bastard. So what happened was, anything Irish. I leaned into, like potatoes, the greatest food ever made. And I just went on this rant whenever I went to SCA events about Irish, and I hated the English. I was like, oh, they the limey bastards. I'd beat the Queen Mother to death with a ham hock right now if she was in front of me. That dirty cunt. And people are like, Jesus Christ, dude, you don't understand. She's English. I don't care. You think she's a sweet old lady, but she's evil. She's evil. She's got minions. They come after you at night. They hunt the Irish down. And I made up all these stories about this sweet old woman who's never hurt anybody. But it was all a gag. It was a gag. So then somebody's like, call me Lord. I said, I am the Lord of all. I was joking around. I am Lord of all. I am the Lord. I love all. I am the Lord of all that is Irish because I love all that is Irish. And then somebody started calling me Lord Ireland. And then one day, everybody started calling me Lord Ireland. And I was like, what the fuck? I said, somebody from Ireland's going to see me one day and get pissed and want to knock me the hell out. But that's the truth. That just stuck with me. I use that as my moniker and jokingly, and I will use that probably. It'll stick with me to the day I die. It's not a bad one,
It could be worse.
It could be worse. It could be Lord Bastard. Actually, that wouldn't be too bad. That would have a great. You could tell a story with that. Or Lord Douche would suck.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's LD, man. Lord Douche. But anyway, so that's pretty much it. I don't really have anything else exciting to say. I'm just like anybody else when it comes to, I have a very cynical look at on politics and most things. I think most people generally think they're doing good, and they really believe they're doing good, but they read too much of the wrong things and they let their emotions take away. We live in a time where people run on emotions. And because everybody's upset about something. We're in the middle of a pandemic. We've been in a lot of wars, the economic crises. Everybody's emotional, and we got to get back to logic. One of the things that will help you get over your emotional stress is gaming, because you get to go blow off steam when you're gaming.
That's right.
And that's one of the things I always did. And I will say this about gaming: in some of the worst times of my life, when I was going through some real hard stuff. And I'll give the best example. My father passed away, and though some of you don't, my story of my father when he passed. It was very traumatic, and I'll just leave it at that without getting into detail. I had also been in a car accident, terrible car accident. My kneecap was shattered, my sternum was bruised, my eye socket was shattered. God, I had ribs, everything. It was horrible.
Man, I forgot about that. Yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Holy moly.
And my father, of course, passed away during this period, 2 days after Christmas. And that's where I get my CPR experience from. In the middle of all this, I'm in a lake cat, horrible. But anyway, somebody, and I still don't know who did it, said, hey, man, let's go. I guess you guys are good guys. And you thought, hey, man, this guy, he can't come game with us. Let's go game with him. So we came to the house, and Roy was there. I think James, one of you might have been there. Greg was there, I remember. But we played Champions in my parents' house. And this is like not even a week after my father had passed. It was after New Year. And I didn't realize it at the time, but something inside me was folded, an organ or something. I was in a lot of pain. I couldn't sit upright. I had to roll. I thought it was just soreness, right? But evidently, during the accident, the force of it jumbled something was lying where it shouldn't have been. So somebody did something. I forgot what it was. Some ridiculous, crazy champion move somebody created. And and I laughed so hard, my chest popped, and people heard it.
Oh.
I was laughing. I went, oh, and people were like, oh, Sean, are you okay? You look like you're going to cry. And I remember everybody looked concerned. He goes, no, I'm laughing so hard it hurts, and I feel better now. Something is fixed in me, and the laughter fixed me. And I remember thinking how amazing it was that in this terrible time I was going through, I was able to get with my friends and go somewhere else, totally removed from this horrible world I was living in at that moment. and have a good time. I haven't laughed in Jesus Christ. I got injured before Christmas. I haven't laughed in weeks. And it's just been a struggle. And I really miss gaming when I didn't have it. There's times in my life, it's been really something I've looked forward to, because it's just, you get with your friends and you get away from it, and you can, at least for a few hours, you can just close your eyes, open your eyes. You're this thing on a piece of paper, with a group of people with a thing on a piece of paper, a guy or girl who's creating a thing, and and that's what you are. It's not real. It's bullshit. It's a smoke screen. It's a story. All right. But it's real enough to just distract you from all the storming of the White House, the coronavirus, wars, China, Putin, whatever you want to talk about. It just distracts you from that, and it gives you a chance to mentally decompress. And then when you're done, you feel a little bit better about yourself. So I would tell anybody that, it's slightly better than reading. It's better than reading a good book. And I'll leave it at that. That's it.
Well,
that's all I got.
That's great.
Well, Sean, thank you so much. I think appreciate it. It was good talking with you.
All right.
And, we'll see you next session, right?
Yeah, next session. Do not play this until everybody's recorded.
That's right.
So I want to see how many other people say they're the greatest gamer besides me. Because somebody else, I want to see who does it.
All right.
And if they don't, I win. That's
all right.
I win.
Right.
All right.
Deal.
All right. Take care.